Karen Raymore with Hocking Hills Tourism Association. This is David Holder from Clarity of Place. And David is going to walk us through the stewardship plan recommendations. David?
Good afternoon, everyone. You are session number 3. And I think the thought there is this session is going to be so good, we're going to record it. So the backs of your heads will be on video for prosperity. The one piece that will go along with that is I'm probably going to make more mistakes giving this presentation than I have the other ones, so we'll just have to live with that. I want to thank each of you for putting the time and energy into attending today and for helping us through this process, because it has been very much a community-driven process, an engaged process, because we have some very interesting stewardship needs here in the Hocking Hills. We're hopeful that this plan, and I always hesitate to call it a plan because a plan implies it's a document and that's all it is. This is really about taking steps forward and implementation, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go through today. I want to start out with doing some introductions. Again, my name is David Holder. I'm with a firm called Clarity of Place. That's what we do. We work with places to help improve some of this. So would you mind introducing yourself and the organization you belong to?
I'm just a member of society, Shelter. I'm Christine Woods, and I'm a worker of Hocking Family.
Great, thank you.
Kristen Bilkey, Pizza Crossing.
Sean North, Logan Town Center. Roy Palmer, retired.
Jessica Horn, citizen.
Alex Wolf, new to the area.
Excellent, welcome.
I'm Cindy Pauls, I'm the stewardship coordinator.
James Bronte, PPT Communications Director.
And I'm Becky Myers, the digital media director.
We're all staying.
Perfect. So thank you for that. We're going to go through a little bit of the background for this and the purpose for this destination stewardship effort. We're going to talk a little bit about the inputs and the considerations that were examined as part of this. I will say, and you'll hear this again, tomorrow we are going to be doing 2 deeper dives into the data and some of the findings along the way. We didn't want to force you to sit through a 3-hour presentation. I didn't want to have to give a 3-hour presentation, so we're doing this in blocks, and we're hopeful you'll come back out tomorrow for that. Regardless of whether you do or don't, we are providing the report as it stands right now as a takeaway. That's your gift for today. We are encouraging, oh, Karen, go ahead.
If you make sure and leave us your email address when you came on the board, when you came in, then we will also send you, if you can't be here tomorrow, we'll send you the plan that includes the appendix that is this deeper data drive. So just make sure we have your email. Thank you.
We are also, as we go through this process, taking input and making adjustments. This is not a plan that is hard and rigid like the floor we're standing or sitting on. This is something that needs to be yours. So over the next 2 days, we've already made small adjustments to this to make certain that it fits what you want and need as a community. The last piece we're going to do is really jump into the recommendations and those actions that can help us move things forward. We're going to be doing, and then the purpose behind all of this was to do really 2 things. The first piece of that was understanding the situation that we're in, especially around those visitor patterns. Those visitor patterns in Hocking County are really tough to measure, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that some today, but we'll get into it deeper tomorrow. In understanding that, we also want to really strive for balancing what we're seeing. We have, and you'll see why, but we've grown very visitor heavy. And it's put some real challenges and pressure on our residents. It's put some real challenges on our economy. moving forward, if we can balance that a little more effectively, it may not make everyone happy, but it might make them happier. And we'll go through what that looks like. When we start this, we usually try to define destination stewardship, because those are two words that we don't see put together very often. And it's really about promoting, protecting, and preserving the tourism industry's long-term viability within a community, creating a net positive impact. Tourism comes with its share of advantages, but it also carries with it its share of burdens. Being able to really balance that more effectively is really what this idea of destination stewardship is all about. It's so important for this area because of the dramatic impacts that have happened since 2020. When the pandemic hit, everyone went crazy for outdoor recreation. It didn't happen just here, it happened everywhere. The ability to go outside and just enjoy the natural beauty around us became an incentive to get out and go to places like the Hocking Hills. When you're as close to a population center as you are to Columbus, and in some ways as you are to Cincinnati, you are going to be a focal point of this. I was here in November in presentations, if you were part of those, we talked about this isn't a tourism problem, it's a popularity problem. You are a popular place, and you are right beside another popular place that is growing and expanding like it's never seen before. So in talking about destination stewardship, we have challenges we need to address right now. If we don't begin doing more to address them, the challenges that come along with the growth of Columbus around Intel become astronomical for you. And that's what we're trying to prepare. What's that future look like? How do we prepare for it now? Columbus Monthly, I only found this just the other day. If I'd found this before I came here in November, we would have referenced it then. This is a great little article that's going to talk about everything I'm talking to you about, not in quite the same detail, but it was a 2022 article, and you can see it. Everyone loves the Hocking Hills, maybe too much. It describes the point. What that has done in terms of creating interest in this community is put all of those blue dots on the map. Those blue dots are cabins. This map looked a lot different in 2018, 2019, and even the start of 2020. That's a lot of short-term rental opportunities in this community. And it creates another set of impacts on where this community is and where it's going. And we'll go into that in detail. As part of this process, we did a resident survey, and I'll read this to you because it's impossible to see it. I even have to stare at it closely to see it. Our residents, if we looked at it in terms of the outcome of that, we had 732 responses, pretty good response rate for a community of this size. Those residents expressed a strong agreement. They agree that there are negative impacts created by tourism. And I'll read you a few of those lines. So if you see anything in green means that those residents either strongly agreed with it, the dark green, or they agreed with it, the lighter shade of green. The first one was a poor behavior of tourists causes more crime, noise, and disruptions in residential areas. There was pretty solid agreement to that. There was even, apparently there was agreement outside. There's even stronger agreement with the notion of rapid tourism growth is damaging the environment and burdening our first responders. There's even more agreement with the growth of tourism, and the popularity of the area is causing prices to rise. And the final piece of that is tourists add to traffic congestion, traffic safety, and parking problems. We asked these same questions of our stakeholders, and we got, I think it was 132 responses to that. Our stakeholders said something similar. There's some acknowledgement of we do have challenges that are created by the visitors coming here. But we need those visitors. Our economy depends on tourism. We are a tourism town. Whether we like it or not, that is what we are. Our county and our municipal bills are paid by visitor dollars. I know they're also paid by property tax, but remember, our tourism businesses also pay that property tax. When we asked our residents about, do you see positive impacts from tourism, there was strong disagreement to those aspects. In other words, you ask me a question, I don't agree with that. So the red bar is strongly disagree. The orange bar is disagree. So we put both of those into the disagreement areas. Looking at that, the short-term rentals like Airbnb, VRBO, etc., provide economic opportunities for residents. Strong disagreement there. But there was also agreement. Again, the green bars are, I do agree with that statement. Without tourist tax revenues, residents would pay higher taxes for government services. Relatively strong disagreement there. My household standard of living is higher because of the money tourists spend here. And I want you to hold on to that statement because we're going to come back to it. Very strong disagreement in that particular category. The last three, residents have more places to go, events, dining options, etc., because of tourism. We have businesses that are here because of tourism that would not be here and would not stay afloat if it weren't for our visitors coming in here. And it's a reality in a lot of different communities. Our population simply can't support the various options of what we offer. Without revenue from tourists, some locally owned businesses could not stay open. Visitor activity encourages new businesses and provides job opportunities for residents. I'm not sure that, and that last one had more agreement than disagreement. So our residents do see that some of this is there. We're going to go into this more in detail tomorrow. In fact, we're going to show side by side the resident and the stakeholder viewpoints on this. And you do see there's some areas where they are on complete agreement, and there are some areas where they are very much in disagreement. All of this has created a gigantic list of concerns. And I don't even know that I need to read this list. You live with this every single day. There's an affordability of real estate. That's a challenge here. There's the ease of mobility and access of our public safety. There's trash and waste concerns, the care of our natural resources. The list goes on and on. You are really challenged by the influx of visitation that's happened here. Second takeaway I want you to have from this is all of these issues, it's impossible for one organization to tackle them. This is a situation that's going to require an enormous amount of collaboration across the community. And that means breaking down communication barriers across multiple organizations. We'll get into that in a few minutes. To build this, we looked at a number of different things. We did a destination assessment, really understanding what are the patterns and trends that are occurring here, and how are our visitors impacting some of that? What's the growth of the industry? Hocking Hills has been a tourism destination for decades. It changed dramatically with the pandemic, and it shows no signs of stopping as Columbus continues to grow. And we're not going to blame Columbus for that. It's a reality of our location. We also looked at policies. a lot of this destination stewardship challenge here in the Hocking Hills relates back to policy challenges. And those policy challenges have been there for decades. And it's one of those areas where, as much as we'd like to pay for something to get ourselves out of this, we can't. We actually need to change policy. Second item, or the next item on the list is there are a number of current initiatives that are addressing destination stewardship. And we need to acknowledge those and build off of those. But you've got an actual great success story building here that needs more attention and needs to be spread further. And we'll go into that. The next piece that it leans on is this community engagement. I've been so impressed with this community's interest in this and turning out both businesses and residents to talk about solutions. I think in some cases there's that need to, I need to just get this off my chest. In other cases, there's a willingness to really work together. And we don't see that in every community out there. We did learn a lot from the resident survey. We did learn a lot from the stakeholder survey. We also looked at a few other places, places like Gatlinburg and Sedona, Arizona, places like Fredericksburg, Texas, that has a large state park and is really easy to access from Austin, Texas, and San Antonio. They have some similarities. They also have a lot of differences. And when we look at those comparatives, we learn a little bit more about what we don't want to be. We also learn a little bit about how do we make certain that we stay we do stay in the lanes that we want to be in. One of those scenarios that we can examine, and we can certainly provide more information on this, is Sedona. Sedona actually did away with all tourism-related marketing and preparation, and they got really challenged to pay their bills. Their businesses did, and their government did. And now they're having to take a few steps back to figure out how to move things forward. So we don't want to be Sedona. Nice place to visit. So again, if you're interested in data, come out tomorrow. We'll be right here. We're waiting for you. One of those pieces of data that I did want to show off today was this crazy chart. It's not an EKG. It is the travel patterns that we see here in the Hocking Hills. This is based on geolocation data, and so we can only really use this for trends right now, but it shows us this level of seasonality, and it shows us this level of real critical peak periods and very concerning down periods. I'll describe what we're seeing here. Those blue spikes are related to visitors that came here from less than 75 miles. They're day trippers, largely. There are some that stay the night, we know that, but that's largely a day tripper audience. The orange spikes at the bottom, those are travelers within 75 to 100 miles. They potentially could be overnight stays. They potentially could be day trips. That's probably a little mix of both. The green bar in the middle represents overnight stays. They have to be overnight stays because they're coming from more than 150 miles. It's highly unlikely that they are driving here and then going home in the same day. It's also more likely that they are spending multiple nights in the area, meaning that they are creating more of an investment in this community, and they are probably not just more financially invested in the Hocking Hills, they may be more emotionally invested in the Hocking Hills, because it's highly likely we see them again as future visitors. They develop their own love for this area. I show this for a few reasons. The primary one is to say, if the perception out there is we are always jammed and mobbed with visitors, that perception's not true. Our weekends, we are. Weekends are off the charts. Weekdays, we have employees that can't get hours. Off-season, same is true. There is some need for encouraging overnight stays during those times of the year, days of the week, where we need business. And it's not a matter of supporting a business community, it's a matter of supporting the employees of that business community and supporting the tax dollars that those visitors bring in and contribute to our economy. In terms of policies, we narrowed it down to 4 big challenges. The first one is you saw those blue dots. We have a lot of short-term rentals in this area. Without land regulations, it's only a matter of time before we have even more. This is unchecked. Land regulations give us a way to at least put some parameters on the development that we see. The second, hey, come on in. The second piece of that, we have a lot of public land, and public land is fantastic. You're gifted with it, but it creates additional strains on being able to develop other parcels of land, and it also drives the cost up because now we're on a limited patch of other land available. With our public lands, and so I could have put this emphasis on how much public land is available in, or how much public land is actually owned in Hocking County. I went a different route because on that public land in the state of Ohio, there are no entrance fees. This is a statewide policy. It's been one for decades. You're only one of 7 states in the country that has free admission to your public lands. And it's a really great benefit to our statewide residents. For Hocking County, it's an enormous challenge because it means we have no way to track the visitors that are coming to Hocking Hills State Park and the other parks in the area. It also means we have no way to manage that visitation, that visitation's coming here, and it continues to grow, and it will grow. People's interest in outdoor recreation continues to grow. With that comes along a public safety component. And it's a public safety component in the fact that one policy that can help with all of this is greater enforcement. Greater enforcement comes in the notion of parking. We have visitors that are parking on private land, they're trespassing on private land, it's causing additional problems. More enforcement can help. The state is challenged in terms of budgeting for more enforcement. Locally, we're challenged with budgeting for more law enforcement. Public safety concerns are a completely big matter for this area. Additionally, traffic congestion creates additional public safety challenges around that. We'll get into some solutions on this in just a few minutes. But this idea of public safety is a component of policy that we need to go back and really think through solutions on it. Final piece on this, recognition of visitor taxes. Tourism-related businesses, they do pay property tax. They also charge sales tax. And if they're a lodging facility of a certain size, they collect lodging taxes. Those lodging taxes help to fund strategic programming and operations for a destination organization. They also help to fund infrastructure within our municipalities. And sales tax being collected on that helps to fund our county. The next piece I want you to put in memory, 2 numbers, 44%, $1,600. Our county depends on sales tax. It's 44% of the budget. That's a big figure. 37% of the budget, if I'm remembering the number correctly, is property tax. So those pieces work together. Without this level of sales tax, your property taxes would be through the roof. And they already have gone up. You've experienced that. However, because of tourism, Each household in Hocking County saves $1,600 that they don't have to pay in taxes. This is outside spending coming into your community. If we have residents that say, I don't benefit from tourism, they're not seeing the impact of that $1,600. They don't feel it. They would feel it if it didn't come here, though. There are a number of adjustments that have taken place since 2021. Those adjustments are in the form of programming and investments from the Hocking Hills Tourism Association. The organization has been aware that we've had these concerns, and they've been gigantically growing. How do we begin to address some of this and put programming and investments in place to guide us forward? The first step of that was partnering with Leave No Trace, an internationally known, recognized brand that looks at destination management and looks at ways to begin to address visitor behavior. The input from Leave No Trace helped to lead to some real smart programs by the Hocking Hills Tourism Association. The biggest piece of that was a program called Love Hocking Hills. I told you I'd make mistakes on this one. Love Hocking Hills, I would put it up against any visitor management program of any destination in the country. I think it's a sensational start, and it's got so much opportunity to grow in this area. But it's a pledge. It's a pledge that we put our visitors through. We need to get this even more widespread. You're going to see that as a recommendation. The Tourism Association also said we don't need more marketing in Columbus and Cincinnati and those day trip markets. We need to be focused on overnight stays. So the marketing investments have gone into places like Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, Chicago, and Philadelphia. Because they are coming here for overnights, they do spend more, they do get more integrated within our community because of that length of stay. They've invested in product development and ways to give visitors more options than just the dramatically in-your-face state park. How do we spread that visit around and really encourage them to be a part of our community and see our community firsthand? One of the pieces I love about these adjustments is a partnership with Logan Public Transit to encourage visitor shuttles out to the state park and ride programs. And it's a great way to get our visitors off the road and into some shuttling options. They've also hired a stewardship coordinator. You met her just a few minutes ago. That's a huge step. That's highly innovative. We don't see that in other communities that have gone through this. They are very much business as usual. Their staffing looks like business as usual. A stewardship coordinator is a big, big step. And the final piece of that is investing in research and data to improve our understanding of the situation, help us prioritize our way out of this and put some solutions together. There are some, as we start moving into implementation, there are some outcomes that we're seeking here. And the first outcome is to revisit that notion of balance. We do have businesses that need visitors. We have visitors that come here and need some level of support and understanding. And they need to have that before they get here. They need to have it while they're here, and they need to have it when they go home too, because they are ambassadors out there. But we also have our residents, and our residents have to be a part of the solution. They have to be a part of the process to get there. One of the pieces that we see in communities like the Hocking Hills, when we start seeing this pressure from visitation, people stop communicating because they're used to hearing complaints and not solutions. So if our local government is not communicating on what they're trying to accomplish and how they need help accomplishing that, and our residents are only talking about the challenges they've encountered, and our businesses are only talking about the ups and downs of business, somehow we've got to bring that together, and communication has to be a big, big piece of this. We also have to get a handle on our short-term rental supply. It has grown out of control. It's a source of many, many challenges. The environment that we do business in now is very different than the environment of 2017, 2018. It's a very easy process for an out-of-area owner to buy a short-term rental or property, convert it to short-term rentals, and there's a financial benefit to that too. We don't have any control on that. And until we do, it's going to continue to happen, regardless of the price of real estate here. It puts more strain on our own residents as we move things forward. The final outcome that we're hopeful for out of this is to understand that positive impact of tourism, economic. This is an economic piece. We depend on it in this community. We depend on the dollars created by this and the jobs that are created by this. One of our challenges, and it's a threat that we've listed in our SWOT analysis, one of the challenges, we do have components of other parts of the economy, but they've been so greatly surpassed by what tourism drives for this community that it's hard to see them. In terms of goals, we looked at two different types of goals. There are goals specific to Hocking Hills Tourism Association and the programs and services that they can invest in. There are also goals that are so far beyond the Tourism Association's abilities and to manage and invest in. It's simply against the law, quite frankly. So within the Hocking Hills Tourism Association, we need them to continue to really address this visitor behavior. We need visitor management practices, and that's where our programs and investments can make a difference. We also need to address the importance of generating overnight stays. This is not about tourism growth. This is about a sustainable level of overnight business for this community. This is a competitive business environment, and it means we have to stay competitive in the marketplace because our visitors, when they're coming from other cities, and I mean overnight visitors, they have a choice on where they go and where they spend their money, and we need some of that spent here. The final piece of looking at the local perceptions, and you saw the research, some of the research that we've done on this, looking at the local perceptions of the impact of tourism and really working to communicate some of those positive impacts, but acknowledging some of the negative challenges that come along with that. Beyond the Tourism Association, there's some additional needs. One of those is managing that future growth of short-term rentals. I can't say it enough, it is a problem. Managing the future need for public safety, and looking at that both from the resident's perspective and the guest perspective, and then addressing congestion and infrastructure needs. These are public investments, but we need some help in getting there. You can't read this. It's not intentional. You'll see it when you get your actual report. But when we looked at the SWOT analysis for this, we did analyze a number of strengths, a number of weaknesses, a number of threats and opportunities. And these helped us really begin to address the steps to move things forward. And I'm not going to go into this in detail, but we did call out each of those. You have this incredible system that's built around your environment here. It's truly a strength. You've got an organization that has a proven track record of building this, and you've got a really connected community. I'm so impressed with the way this community wants to work together. We just need to encourage that more. We have some weaknesses, though, and it's all of those things that we said earlier, including the diversity of our economy. We have some threats that are all associated with that, the biggest being the affordability of housing. That resident just discontentment is so huge here. And you're still at a level that you can get a handle on it. It's not out of control, but it's approaching that. So we do have some opportunities, though. And I want to focus on one of those. We're seeing more funding for Appalachia and the state of Ohio right now than ever before. How do we make certain that we're using that to address some of our challenges? How do we go after it in a way, promote the needs of this area? One of those ways is to get the community to really talk about solutions, not talk about the problems they face. This is about solutions now. You'll see in the plan that we put a big emphasis on the different roles. Our state government has a role to play in our destination stewardship challenges of the Hocking Hills. Because of that public land component, we need their help with the management of our resources. We need their help with law enforcement associated with those public lands. The state has to be a player in this. Our local government also has to be a player in this, both from the county perspective and from the municipality perspective. They all have a role in this going forward. Some of that role includes property regulation. Some of that role includes investments in infrastructure, all the way down to looking at workforce issues and some of those challenges. The Hocking Hills Tourism Association has a role in this. We do have to sustain and continue that tourism economy. We have to make certain that stays in place, but we also need their help in communicating, in making investments that wouldn't necessarily be a priority by those other groups, but because they are looking at combining both the quality of life of our residents, but also what do our visitors need to help relieve some of this pressure. Some of that does go back to the idea of investments in transportation resources like the shuttling services. Some of that comes back to an educational environment and supporting our businesses and our residents with more educational resources. Final piece on this, and I think this is actually the most important of those different roles. Our stakeholders and our residents have to be active in this process. It can't be a matter of someone else will handle it. It's got to be a matter of I need to roll up my sleeves and make certain that I'm a part of this. And over the next few months, we know our businesses are going to be heavily distracted by their own business because it happens in this peak season. So we've got to make certain that that engagement is allowed to happen over time, but it really gets at a different level post-October. And we need to hear the success stories at the same time that we hear some of the challenges. Those success stories don't often make it to our elected officials. They hear the problems. They hear the problems almost too much, that the problems become almost all-encompassing. They don't hear the positive stories, and they need some of those because it actually helps to provide both sides of the story. And you do have both sides of the story here. So let's get into recommendations. The biggest recommendation for this community is truly working together and we're not saying it needs to be a formal organization, but it does need to come together and be convened. This Destination Stewardship Collaborative gets all of those different parties into the room and starts really working through the advocacy needs to address those policies that we talked about earlier. The great thing is there's already momentum happening in some of this. The county's doing a lot of work around understanding the options for zoning. It's not saying this is the way it's going to be, all other ideas have to go out the window. It's allowing people to really have a part and a role and participate in the process. That's only part of the story, though. And so really thinking about what do we need from the state? How do we collectively go to petition for our needs as the Hocking Hills to ensure that some of this begins to change? And we can get a handle on managing some of those policies that feel impossible to manage right now because there's so many other players involved. So this is a forum to communicate. It's also a forum to hold organizations and individuals accountable for the next step. If someone says, I know a certain state legislator, I'm going to go talk to them, Did that conversation take place? What was the outcome? What support do you need in that conversation? Do we need to have more voices that are heard for that? Do we need to have more people in the room as part of that conversation? This is true advocacy. If the Destination Stewardship Collaborative is starting to work on collaboratively on the policy changes that are needed, the Hocking Hills Tourism Association is going to work on the programs that go along with some of that. And there are more programs that are needed. We broke this down into 3 different areas. We need to encourage respectful visitor behavior. Part of this is the responsibility of our guests. How do we help them better love the Hocking Hills and not love it to death? Second piece of that is convening those collaborative engagements. The idea of a destination stewardship collaborative is great, but if no one convenes it, it doesn't happen. Everyone stays in their lane, they stay in their silo, they do not cross-communicate. We do feel like part of that beginning process lives with the Hocking Hills Tourism Association. They're not running it, but they are convening it. They are gathering the people together. And you may even be part of that process. And then the final piece is presenting the value of tourism. There's a lot of communication that doesn't get out there on what tourism delivers for this community and our reliance on it. There is a reliance on this industry. So we've got to present that in some different ways, some very visual ways. We're not going to convert everyone to understand that, but if we shift things even a small percentage-wise, it does change our ability to help and work together more effectively. In each of these, we had a number of expected outcomes. This is what we seek. This is the vision behind it. That our overnight business becomes more consistent across days of the week and times of the year. That's not saying that we're going to grow tourism. We're focusing on times of the year where we're really limited. We want all of our travelers to treat the Hocking Hills with care and respect, and we also want to see an ease up on congestion in those key traffic areas. We've pinpointed those. We know what they all are. You lived with it for years. Now we continue to really focus on those. We have 4 strategies to help us with that, and I'll go into a little bit of detail on those. Overnight guests have to continue to come here to help us pay our bills, to keep our hourly employees employed and give them the hours they need. Part of that, though, is looking at those times of the year where we do need growth. We do need a little bit more business. This is not saying we're going after 100% occupancy in Hocking County. This is saying where there's a sustainable level out there that we can achieve. But right now, our peaks are very, very high, and oftentimes our valleys are very, very low. As we do that, even some of the conversations we have with our wedding planners and our special event planners, helping them realize another weekend in July doesn't work for this community. But let's talk about early May, and it may be more effective. In educating our visitors, the Love Hocking Hills program is effective. It doesn't reach as many audiences as we need it to right now. Our hotels and our short-term rentals and vacation rental properties have done a pretty good job of pushing this out there. It's in the rooms. It's in the common areas. What's missing in that is our day trippers don't see those rooms and common areas. So we need that in other businesses. We need it's a part of that restaurant scene. It's part of our gas stations. How do we emphasize the desired behavior we want in Hocking Hills to those day trippers? Part of that is using our Columbus media opportunities. We know the Hocking Hills Tourism Association is going to be invited multiple times during the year to come in and talk to a news channel, a radio station in Columbus. It's not an open invitation to come here. It has been in the past, but that was pre-2021. Now we want to welcome you, but we need you to really care for our area. And it's a really different message. Encouraging visitor use of shuttling is really important, and it's another one of those communication pieces that we're going to need help on. But this needs to be spread out through our business community, touching our visitors to make certain they are aware this shuttling option is there for them, and making certain they feel confident that it will be there when they are ready to leave. And that's always that challenge that we have with shuttling. If it helps me get there with ease, I want to be assured that it's going to allow me to leave when I'm ready. Encouraging visitor dispersion to other areas and other options. This is all about experience development. And we've seen some great impacts from that. We've seen the butterfly trail. We've seen, if you walk down the street and pass by the Children's Museum, that's an outcome of some of this work. But it gives our visitors more options at the same time that it creates quality of life amenities for our locals. So what's next? What's the next piece that we can look at? We talked a little bit about that concern over waste disposal and trash. If you walk outside, those trash cans on the street here in Logan are investments around product development. And it's one of those things we can definitely see going. We need to facilitate this interaction across community organizations. And again, more communication and engagement allows us to be focused on solutions. It allows us to address the problems that we're seeing. And they come in a lot of different ways. Talking about not just what we're trying to do, but how we're trying to go about it and the outcome that we're seeking. We think a workshop on destination stewardship, an annual workshop on that, can be really effective, but it can't stand alone. It has to come with quarterly, perhaps monthly updates on here's what we're seeing, here's what we're doing to address some of these challenges. The biggest key there is that initial convening of the Stewardship Collaborative. And it may be that thing spins off in a lot of different directions, and that's great. But we need it to start. That's probably the first step out of this. We also think there's some efforts around one of those focus areas is making certain we're putting some time and energy to encourage either state or private industry to invest in cell phone tower boosters out towards the park that make certain that we don't run into public safety challenges because I don't have a cell phone signal. We're not saying we're going to litter this beautiful area with cell phone towers. There's some ways to do this in a way that becomes low impact visually. But you've had empty promises made for years around boosting this. And we can't accept that as an answer. We've got to encourage that to happen. A lot of this keeps going back to communicating, convening, and gathering different organizations together to talk. The fact that you're here today and others have been here in the 2 sessions previously continues just to send a really loud message. This community wants this to happen and needs it to happen. The final piece of this is establishing some level of understanding of the impact of travel and tourism to Hocking County. There are benefits here. We don't do the job that we need to as a community to communicate some of those outcomes. There's a great deal of misperception that's associated with all of the negatives with tourism because we're living that every single day. So it's hard to see that there's an economic value because all I see are more and more people. And I don't see that I'm benefiting from that. I see my property tax increase. All of these things seem to be counterintuitive to this industry is actually helping this community. With that, I will urge you, read through this. Please give us input and guidance on making this a plan that works most effectively for you. Invest some time into the Love Hocking Hills program because it's a great one. and it can be even greater. And with that, one way you can do that is to scan this QR code. You can get engaged with the community forum that is part of the Hocking Hills Tourism Association. You also have my email at the bottom of this. If you do have some ideas, suggestions, concerns, please don't hesitate to send them my way. And with that, are there questions, thoughts, concerns, statements?
How many short-term rentals are there? Is it really 1,500 now? Okay, the last I heard was like 1,000, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
last report that Josh, our architect, gave the commissioners, he said 50. Now,
That's a lot.
that might include a couple hundred hotel rooms. He said 1,500 units.
Oh,
So maybe we're like
Yeah.
Still, okay.
And we went through and counted, I don't know how old the list was. It may have been a 2022 list, and it was like 830 short-term.
But it's growing.
And it's a constantly shifting number. It's also hard there are some of those that have one bed. There are some of those that have 20 beds. And it's not necessarily the number of units. If we one of the things we did do a comparison on were those other communities that are out there. Your number is still lower than some of those comparative communities, like a Sedona or Fredericksburg, Texas, an Estes Park, Colorado. But it's growing so fast that you'll catch up to some of those communities before too long without some kind of control.
We're, I've heard a lot around the community from residents is, we don't want to be Gatlinburg. We don't want to be
Just said that, I've heard that. Yeah.
And I don't either, trust me. I've been to both places, I don't want to be either one of them. But a few years ago, I started subscribing to a couple of cabin companies in Gatlinburg, their newsletter, just because I like to see what's going on in the competition.
Yeah.
And I just got one of their emails a couple days ago. They're offering 35% off on Memorial Day weekend.
Jeez.
Because Gatlinburg overbuilt. And what that does is turns you into a discount destination. And the last thing I ever want to see here is a discount destination. We don't want that.
That's what we say about coupons, so we don't issue coupons, we don't do it,
Exactly. I
You
think
create a habit,
you do, and you create this perception
and you create
that,
a new.
and we, I won't be shy, we do market to mature and affluent travelers. That's who we want to come. Because we want them to respect the park. So we want somebody mature, not a bunch of kids. When spring break comes, we're not marketing to college kids, absolutely not. Families, because this is a great location for families.
So what do we have to offer for college kids?
Yeah, really.
We have things to offer for families, not college kids.
Not the ones that want to go get naked in Florida on the beach.
What kind of coordination has there been with the downtown plan that I see coming?
I'm familiar with it because I was at some of the meetings as they were putting it together, but we at the HHTA as an organization, other than kind of peripherally, didn't have, that really is the city's baby. James, can you address that? The process for the downtown plan that the grant just was approved for? We have a city council member with us.
We're actually going to be discussing that next week at City Council. I got a phone call yesterday from Bruce, and he said that we will start discussing it, and then I would imagine that probably there's going to be an ad hoc committee set up and start discussing it and then going out to the public to make sure that it makes sense what they do.
So how far along is that plan?
It's not at all.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a plan that the consultants created, and that's what was used to apply for the funds that they were just
Right,
applying.
but the city plan that overlays that has not been discussed yet.
For anybody not familiar, the city of Logan just received a little over $14 million that's for improvements to the exit off of 33 and 93 downtown and Worthington Park, is my understanding. Yeah,
That's right, yeah.
that's correct.
Well, downtown just needs to be more of a focus for us.
I mean, I'm real excited because when I got here almost 17 years ago, downtown was dead. People would say to me, well, how do we get some of those, million tourists from the park to come downtown?
Yeah.
And my answer was, well, nobody goes on vacation and says, gee, honey, let's renew our driver's license. and that was kind of all you could do downtown at that time. So now that we have shops, now that we've got more eateries, we're starting to see, I'm noticing on weekends, a lot more foot traffic downtown. So,
Yeah. People still walk up and down looking for something to do.
Yeah.
And that's, we ought to spend part of that 14 million on creating something for them to do downtown.
and this building right here, this theater, will become the cornerstone for downtown when it's complete. And I think many people have known that for many years. But as the folks that are doing this renovation will tell you, it's a very arduous project.
But the goal of that project really is to create the backdrop so that businesses would want to come and say, hey, this is a great scene for me to set up in. And so then grows the experiences for the visitors and for the community members themselves. And they need each other, right? So if the community wants, a nice place to have a date and walk downtown, well, guess what? You need tourism to help keep those afloat too, because unfortunately, like you said earlier in the presentation, we just don't have the population to really support a lot.
Yeah.
So we need it. We need critical mass downtown,
Right.
but we also need community and we need tourism both.
And it's been proven in many places that if residents love a part of their town, so will visitors. There's nothing, it's very common in tourism that you want to live like a local or experience things that the locals like. In fact, that's some of the most influential marketing there is what locals say they want to do. So visitors want to, they want to enjoy the same things that our residents want to enjoy.
We've done a lot of work with Fort Collins, Colorado, and it's a really different situation there. They aren't necessarily overly visited by travelers, but when travelers go there, they sense such a level of community pride, and you almost see this as part of their DNA. They'll walk into a business, and the first question will be, "Welcome here. What brings you to town?" As soon as they start to talk about, well, I came here for this, they start just barraging the guest with options. Well, have you tried that? And it's not a matter of, I want you to spend more money here in the community. It's, I have my favorites, and I want you to experience those because I love them so much. And there comes along with that a level of expectation that if I'm giving you my secrets, you better take care of them.
Right. And I think that goes back to one of your recommendations, which was to kind of increase the awareness of the good stories, not just what everybody's mad about, but what successes there are. That builds community pride a lot. When you can be, when you can say, well, but my community's accomplished this, and this, you're proud of it. And that, just like in Fort Collins, that comes across big time to our visitors.
Yeah.
And I've seen that just since I've been here, that the increase in pride in place is what I call it. But I've seen that grow. I think, Sean, I know you guys, Christy, you have too, that having businesses downtown, you've seen that as more people come downtown and there's more. You guys posted the best picture ever. It was from the pandemic, and the people were lined up outside, down the street, all 6 feet apart, like we were supposed to be. And thank the community because, not every restaurant was lucky enough to survive.
One thing that sticks up in my mind is I feel like, did we lose a restaurant? I don't think we did.
I don't either.
And I think we all communicated, the restaurant community did. Me and Sean talked every day. We talked to Mike or Old Dutch. It's just where that communication really comes in. I feel like the existing local shops, we don't see each other's threats.
Yes.
We actually do work together.
Well, and see, that's one of those success stories that needs to be communicated. That the fact that in a lot of communities, I'll go online to a place I visited years ago, and maybe there was a restaurant. I can't tell you how many of them that just said closed permanently. They did not survive the pandemic. So the fact that we didn't lose any, that's huge.
Well, but it makes me sad though in a way because I see local and county governments. I don't feel like the communication is there between the local, the county, and the tourism association. Three huge organizations that really need to communicate. I don't see it, and I'm not faulting anybody, but I don't see the communication.
No, I think there's room for improvement with everybody. Absolutely.
So, organizations like ours, we're in the same industry, not seeing each other as threats. We don't really gatekeep anything. We're actually working together. That can lead to a lot of success. And I wish I saw more of that.
I'll build on that. I'll build on that because I think that opportunity to start that now you're at a great point. And if it doesn't start now, it never will. So let's go ahead and kind of kick that off. We heard this morning, we had a county commissioner in the room for the first presentation. And we heard, I wouldn't say it was a plea, but it was an admittance that we need help. We don't know what the solution should be. We need input and help. All we hear are the negatives and the problems. And when the only thing you hear is negative, it turns everything dark. So being able to talk a little bit about those success stories and the needs of the business community, the needs of how that looks going forward, if you can leverage this plan as kind of a kickoff to some of that, the plan was successful. But it really does take individuals coming in with an appetite to listen and not just complain.
Yeah. I don't know if you can answer this, but can you deny or, confirm the rumor of the water park they're thinking about building on 93?
I have not heard anything about a water park.
I've had a lot of people ask me about the water park coming to Logan, and I'll be honest, nobody has talked to us, not so. And I can't find anybody that has talked to anybody. I have a feeling it would just be a rumor. Would I be upset? It depends on where the water, if they want to do a water park.
Yes.
You do it off of 525, where it's, and maintain on city water and sewer, because you don't want that on a well and septic. It would certainly help in off-season to bring in, to attract visitors during off-season. They want to build it out across from Old Man's Cave. I am dead set against me. So
I'll tell you, when you hear rumors, don't believe the rumors until you see that sign on the
Well, I don't
sign.
actually.
Exactly.
Here's why. In our transition, buying Pizza Crossing, every single day was a damn roller coaster. I mean, it was the day before we were thinking about not doing it. So you see that sign.
I was just saying. Because I don't hear a lot. My other thing.
So it was interesting that you asked that question, and that's the first I've heard the mention of the two words water park. Although I'm at lunch today, and I'm thinking back on the first two presentations, and I'm going, all right, what are there different ways to tell the story? And part of the story on the land regulation challenge that we have, if someone wanted to come in and build a water park in the county, there's nothing stopping them.
I got a 2,000 square foot house, 2 doors down, it would be smaller than my house, on 5 acres for sale, $800,000.
Yes, I saw that. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
And they'll probably sell it.
Yeah.
Why would they sell it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Just sitting on 5 acres and they can add another, 6, 7 cabins.
Yeah. So go to your next question.
My other question is, do we begin at our township meetings? Is that where we begin to build them up to get to our city council meetings? Because you have to get the townships involved, because that's where it breaks down to, is there. And getting past that mindset, sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's positive.
Yep.
But trying to get those township people that we voted for to get involved in this, because a lot of, not to throw my husband under the bus, but a lot of his is negative, like, you don't want to get involved. It affects you. It affects, speaking of involved. It affects you on that level when you're, when the people in your own house, it affects you because you're in the city.
Yeah.
So you can't have this mindset, I'm not going to get involved. It involves you. It involves you at some level.
Yeah.
Whether you're, I live in the city of Logan, and, obviously, because of my job, it very much involves me. But even beside that, my neighbors in the subdivision where I live, they consider that this affects their lives, even though they don't work in tourism, they're in education.
Right, it does, at some level.
It starts with every single one of those groups, which sounds like a really daunting step. But one of the things that is part of the Hocking Hills Tourism Association component of this is not just convening those conversations. It can't be a part of all of the conversations that need to happen. But what the association can do is provide toolkits that allow you to tell that story, that kind of erase some of the rumors are always going to be out there, but they start to erase some of those rumors and give everyone talking points on, here's what we're trying to do. How can you help us? And that's more solution focused than we have too much congestion. Okay, what do I do about that? Now we can really pinpoint on what's the first step we do? What's the second step we do? And some of that's motion, things that are already in motion. Some of this, though, is not in motion at all. And so it's a matter of introducing the concepts. There are, and we've heard this from day one working on this, there are barriers right now that are us versus them. And some of that's municipal based. That you start to ask, how are you spending this money? Why do you want to know? And that's a very knee-jerk reaction. I want to talk a little bit about our destination stewardship efforts and how do we get your community engaged, and create it in a way that allows understanding to be developed, appreciation of the concern that needs to be developed, and a willingness. I do look at, I'm going to give you, this is always dangerous. As a consultant, it's always dangerous to express your opinion. My opinion is, I don't know how anyone wants to be an elected official. With that being said, there's so much pressure on elected officials to try to be experts in everything that...
With no prior requirements.
Yeah, so part of that is how do we help educate for the solutions that we need? Because right now it looks like a budget, and it looks like, and all I hear are budget requests. I need to help me determine how to be more effective as an elected official. Right. And how do I do things on behalf of my constituents and my fiduciary responsibility to move things forward. And that sounds easy to say, but it's really, there's a lot of different distractions and noises that come through that process.
Because every city wants to put a Band-Aid on the symptoms instead of the problem.
Yeah.
I'm not about doing that. I'm about going to the problem, fix the problem, and they'll fix the symptoms.
We had
I've got people that's willing and open-minded to do that. That's in every walk of life.
Everything. We had a person, we presented this to the board of the Hocking Hills Tourism Association last night. We had a question around, why do we not have a workforce housing strategy built into this? And the response to that is because that's the symptom. Yes. The disease is we have a massive real estate problem. And until we get a handle on that, we can't specifically call out workforce housing because it's a housing issue regardless.
Right.
I just don't think that's a problem that's up to the tourism association.
It's not. And
Well, I have found out that I am to blame for your increased property taxes. The person who turns around in your driveway, that's my role. Yeah, you know, it's, luckily I'm old and thick-skinned, so.
That's a zone problem, and that's something that the commissioners and the county need to sort out.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in their shoes, but
No, I agree.
somebody needs to.
But I'm hoping as we develop this stewardship collaborative, that we have township trustees and city and county, that we have a good representation of government, because that's critical. And I hope you will be participating.
It is. Well, I'm trying to find out where to plug myself into the concerns that I
We're
see.
we got your email, right?
Yes.
Okay, because you're gonna be getting information, and I can't say this enough, but we really do need everybody to be willing to participate. You know?
It's a community that changes things.
And maybe all you can do is help share Facebook content when it goes up. Be sure to join that page, because that's where we'll be putting a lot of information. And, I know that everybody doesn't have unlimited amounts of time to sit in meetings. In fact, my idea of heaven is no meetings. So,
Yeah.
I know better than to anticipate or expect everybody to just sit through an endless amount of meetings. But if we all help communicate those success stories, steps that are being taken, that will help.
Sean and I have a quick question. How does the sales tax correlate with the property tax savings, the 1,600?
Yeah, the 1,600, will you elaborate on that just a little bit real quick? I heard the number you said, but I didn't understand what you were saying.
So that includes basically all the different taxes that our visitors and the businesses that serve them pay into the county.
Okay.
I'm sorry, into the county and the state.
Okay.
So if we looked at that figure and we understood, and when there's a report behind this, if we understand the total taxes generated by tourism to Hocking County, then it allows us to back out, based on the number of households, that's additional taxes that are generated that our locals aren't necessarily paying. If they're a local business, they may be paying that property tax, but it's being collected on the backs of our travelers.
Like, are you saying like the visitor that comes and buys a burrito to eat in, and they pay the sales tax on that somebody here local doesn't? I don't know.
No. This is on top of what's being paid locally. This is visitor only spending, and how the taxes generated from that offset.
Offset. There's a reduction because there's an increase in tax.
If we didn't have.
So if
Is it gonna happen?
They're just saying, what it is, every year or every other year, the state of Ohio does these economic impact studies, and they're pulling the tax data right from the Ohio Department of Taxation.
Okay.
They can split up what kind of a business it is. So let's say it's a plumbing business, then that's not being considered tourism tax dollars. If it's a restaurant, it's tourism, if it's a hotel, obviously. So they separate those and tell us what that total tax impact is. And then if you divide that by the number of households, that is how you're coming up with what the savings is. Nobody's getting a rebate on their property taxes because of
Is
what
it the way the
business-
state's determining property tax or
No.
factoring?
What they're saying is, if you didn't have this much money coming in from the taxes that are being paid by the visitors, that money's got to come from somewhere, which means that your property taxes would likely be increased.
They're saying we have a right to raise them more if we didn't get it from here.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
They would, yeah. In order to.
They weren't getting the $6 million of sales tax that a lot of that is being generated by tourists, and they got to come up with the money somewhere.
I'll give you another side of this. So I live in upstate New York, in the county that Syracuse is in, where we have tourism, but we're not a tourism community. Our number is something like $476 per household. There are communities where the number is small enough that if I'm a household and I'm feeling stressed out by tourism, I'll write you a check for that, just keep the visitors away. Hocking County is not one of those. That number is super high.
So the short-term rentals don't have an impact on property tax, or do they?
They do. And there are a lot of loopholes that are out there right now.
That's a big problem too, right?
There's a lot of loopholes, so
You
it's,
pushed out of your own house if you're on fixed income.
yep,
Yep.
yep.
You can own
It is a
your own
big
house.
problem.
You can own it.
It's, you know,
You're always renting.
which is why the short-term rentals
Yeah.
issue was up.
Let's just think about it.
Thank you very much.